fears. Once again, we're feeling fear about our future. I know I am. Here in Germany, Germans are afraid that their country will slide into a new Nazi Reich. Coincidentally, the Americans are afraid of the same thing. In this video, I want to give you a snapshot of what Germans are feeling right now and show you why Americans are going through the same thing, why it's very similar. And I want to say my beliefs about how justified these fears are and how justified they are not. I had a conversation just this week with a guy who I would judge to be kind of a typical German. In my experience, the typical German is well-informed, well-educated, very reasonable, influenced by the leftist, elitist media, because that's the ruling, the dominating media, just like in the U.S., but not stupid enough to fall for every little media trick or political trick. He's an older guy, older middle age. He's seen a little bit, so he's doesn't have this youthful zeal for stupid ideas and doesn't go to extremes. He knows how humans work and how society works, and has a fairly good idea of the society we live in. He said he was worried that a new form of Nazis will come to power in Germany. And he was even more worried that Trump would turn America into a dictatorship. In Germany, he's referring to the AfD, the political party, the Alternative für Deutschland, the Alternative for Germany, which is considered a far-right party. Their biggest political rhetoric is anti-immigrant, similar to Trump, or at least Trump in 2016. And a lot of their rhetoric on the extreme right, they have an extreme radical right wing, is very similar to Nazi rhetoric. And that's why a lot of people in Germany think that it's a new Nazi party. It's not just leftist propaganda against a right-wing competitor. The AfD is very extreme. I know people who I respect, intellectuals, good people who now vote for the AfD, and that is very concerning. So this friend of mine is afraid that the AfD may come to power and may manage to use democracy to destroy democracy. And of course, that's what happened in the Nazi Reich. Hitler was voted democratically. He won the election in 1332, and then he immediately used his government to dismantle democracy. He went for the institutions, and he dismantled the democratic elements of the institutions, the checks and balances, the courts and the police. Once he had the institutions on his side, he was able to turn a democracy into a dictatorship. That's, of course, the same thing that Biden means when he says that the MAGA Republicans are trying to dismantle democracy, are a threat to democracy. In our discussion, I pointed out that Germany has had far right-wing groups before, since the war, and they've come and gone. The mass of the German voters briefly became enamored by them and cast protest votes, but in the end, they never came to power. And I also pointed out that this fear about Trump turning America into a dictatorship, we had this fear in 2016. I had it. I know. I was really worried. But it turned out that he didn't do that at all. He pointed out that things may be different now. First, in Germany, the AfD now has more power, is politically more successful than any of its predecessor right-wing parties ever were. And Trump is also different. In the meantime, Trump has really gone through hell of attacks on his person and on his financial foundation. I can't imagine, and neither could he imagine, that this did not leave a scar on his personality. And the way he put it was, this time Trump will get revenge. So is that realistic? And of course, theoretically, it is possible. It happened in 1932-33, when Hitler took over power. That means it can happen in America too, and it can happen in Germany today too. And so there is an element of this fear that is realistic. How realistic is it? How justified are these fears? I believe that neither America nor Germany nor the Western world will slide into an anti-democratic state. This is why. When Hitler dismantled the institutions of democracy, Germany had only been a democracy for 12 years. And for the rest of the history, they had a parliament, but the parliament was basically toothless. It was basically a feudal system. And these feudal roots go deep in Germany. I still see them in some parts today. There is a lot of dependence on the state, a tendency to step back from individual responsibility and give responsibility to the state. And that's a feudal instinct. In America, we made a clean break with feudalism in 1776, and we never looked back. And the average American feels a great political responsibility for retaining democracy. Americans, like anyone else, make a lot of mistakes and do a lot of stupid things. But in the end, I believe that the instinct to preserve democracy will win out and will stop Americans from doing the worst possible thing. When Trump comes along and tries to, make all the police in America take a personal vow of loyalty to him personally, I think 99% of the police will say, nah, that's not happening. What about Germany? I often criticize them for being less democratic than they could be, but there is a huge difference in Germans today than in 1949 when the current German state was formed. I think in the end, in general, the average German has a strong enough feeling for responsibility for democracy and for the state that even if they cast a so-called protest vote for the right and against the leftist elite, that they would not take the ultimate step and let the extreme right or any anti-democratic party or movement come to power. I think they would take personal responsibility for the institutions of democracy in Germany and not let that happen. I believe that we are playing with fire. I believe that we do a lot of stupid things. I believe that we go to extremes that we may later regret. I agree that we are divided on how the state should be, and that we are passionate in our fighting for what we believe the state should be that we live in. But I also believe that we are always striving for the good, and that we know that democracy is one of the greatest goods that mankind has ever conceived of. I believe the people of the Western world will not fall into any kind of dictatorship because they know what democracy is worth and they are willing to fight to keep it. Thanks for listening and good luck.